Hey, oh, that was weird. It actually worked. Alrighty, hi. Welcome to Med Medicine with Miss P. I didn't mean to get that clock in there. Okay, so I'm just gonna dive right in. So these are things that have been either charted or told to me by patients over the years. I think most of this um, are things that patients have written down, but I do have some student stuff also. Okay, when filling out their own information, and not just where I am now, where I was previously, they'll write in little notes or things that they want us to know about. And this patient said that she was a difficult incubation. Maybe when she was an infant, she had to be incubated. She's a difficult incubation. She probably meant intubation, but in case we want to put her in a small glass box, we know that it's going to be difficult. Thoracic, or maybe it's thoracic. Patient had a thoracic spine surgery. Sleepopenia. I know I've told you that before. I've heard that before. Sleepopenia. And when you have your bilateral tubal ligation, you'll get a variety of things. I've got a tuberculation, but my favorite is the litigation. I think I told you that also. Litigation, when there's a courtroom going on in your pelvic cavity. And I did have a patient tell me over the phone that they had osteomyelitis of the throat. I don't know if maybe they swallowed a chicken bone that got infected. And you can't talk them out of it. Osteomyelitis of the throat. I'm assuming they mean a cervical vertebral body was infected. Don't know. They also told me that they took 2 millimeters of Xanax every night. When you're measuring your Xanny bars in length, you take too much Xanax because it comes in milligrams, 2 millimeters. And, in their defense, it does come in like a little Xanny bar. And I had a patient just the other day tell me that. She's like, well, I take 2 bars. I still need to know how much each bar is. And this I get a lot. Patients are very confused about what side of their body you're going to be working on, as if people have different right and lefts. If you say my right arm side, that's what they said. Where's your hernia? On my right arm side. Well, that's good. Everything on your right is over there. Arm, leg, shoulder, hip, knee. That's, everything that's on the right is your right arm side, because that's the same side as your right arm. But they always say, like, it's my right arm. Well, I'm not having surgery, so it's not going to be my right arm. It's always the patient's side, as it would be anybody's side, correct, when you say right or left. Everybody has the same left side. Everybody has the same right side. You never have to say my right. It's the patient's right, Because you're the patient. Varicose veinectomy. All right, that's, we know what that means. It's still good stuff. I think I may have told you this also. The patient that told me they had an autopsy that showed cancer on themselves. They had an autopsy performed on themselves, and it showed cancer. All right. Herodidectomy, heart valve. Hereditary heart valve. It's hereditary. And even if it were hereditary, still doesn't make sense. But okay. Allergic to penicillin, it gives me bladder infections. Okay, that's not even possible. It's not even possible. The thing with allergies, and I think we've said this before way back when we talked about allergies, if it doesn't turn you red, make you itch or swell, it's not an allergy, because that requires a histamine response, right? Anything that turns you red, makes you itch or swell, determines a true antihistamine, a histamine response, because what you're introduced to, what your body's introduced to, is going to try to respond with a histamine response, because it's going to try to create an antihistamine. It's going to stop whatever that situation is, right? We talked about that before. The solution to pollution is dilution. So anything that swells, your body's trying to kind of flush out and get out of there. Any any hives, any itching, anything like that, that is your body kind of rejecting that material. So it can't, an antibiotic can't give you a bladder infection. It's not, in no way is that even possible, like not even a little bit. Now it can give you a yeast infection. It's unlikely that, maybe just penicillin would, but I tell you what, women, when you're prescribed Augmentin, say no, thank you. Try again. Give me something else, because you are guaranteed a yeast infection unless they want to give that to you with some diflucan. Otherwise, you can't get a bladder infection or an organism infection. Like a yeast infection, it's an organism. You can get a yeast infection from certain antibiotics that are destroying the natural flora of that area, in which case yeast will take over, and that's where it becomes like, infected. It's just an overgrowth. It's not necessarily an infection, it's infestation, I guess. But when someone says like, or penicillin doesn't work on me, I distinctly remember hearing that more than once. I haven't heard it in a long time, but so much so that one of the nurses I used to work with, bless her heart, she even wrote that on the board, or I think she wrote it on her list. She said like, penicillin doesn't, work for her. And I'm like, well, that's good, because if penicillin worked on her, she would be dead, because penicillin is an antibiotic, bio meaning life, and anti meaning trying to kill that life. So an antibiotic is meant to kill an organism. And if it worked on you, that meant it killed you. So when you say it doesn't work on me, it doesn't mean that penicillin can't work for you. It means whatever you were taking it for before, that organism was not sensitive to penicillin. It's not supposed to work on you. Otherwise it would kill you. And I told you this before, the umbilical hernia, I think that was one of my favorites, not to be confused with the biblical hernia. That was the top of my list, a biblical hernia. I don't know if I told you this before. I had a patient tell me that they have white collar syndrome and their blood pressure goes up when they're around business attired men, I guess, or individuals. White collar syndrome. Now, I don't know if he's confusing that with blue collar syndrome, when you're surrounded by plumbers and mechanics and, you're nervous about not being able to do what they can do, maybe. White collar syndrome, still also not a thing. What he means, of course, is white coat syndrome. Dumbest thing I've ever heard, makes no sense whatsoever, absolutely ridiculous in every sense of the word, completely masking and confusing the truth of the fact that that patient has uncontrolled hypertension. That's all there is to it. We'll talk about that another time, because I can go on for days. Heart populations. A patient has heart populations when there's a lot of people surrounding his heart populations. And I did have a patient tell me that her crystals were out of line. And I don't know if she was going with the types of rocks that bring you good and bad fortune, I guess, or if she means her actual crystals in her bloodstream, which would be her electrolytes. I still don't know. And I swear I told you about I know I told you about this one, the patient that told me when she takes whatever medication was, I can't even remember. She says, my eyes act like a lizard if I take this medication. Now, I can finally read that out loud without losing my mind, but the first 50 times I read that out loud to the class when I said lizard eyes, I could not contain myself. I just thought that was one of the funniest dang things I ever heard. So I'm assuming it was probably compazine or something like that, where you have those extra pyramidal effects where your eyes move independent of each other, or you get all kinds of weird twitching and stuff like that. Those are side effects, and that happens. That's not an allergy. Those are side effects, and they're no fun, and I don't recommend them, but that's what we get. So the next thing I've got, I think I already went through all of these. I told you about the malignant colon cancer, which, is the worst kind of cancer, is the malignant kind. And I think that's most of those. I did have a patient tell me, and I saw this yesterday, I'm going to have to look into this. And every time somebody says that they had 2 hysterectomies, or when they say like they had a partial hysterectomy versus a full hysterectomy, which is still just the hyst, it's still just the uterus. They're not talking about a salpingectomy or an oophorectomy. It's just, a hysterectomy is just your uterus. Where they leave the cervix or not, I don't care. Nobody cares. That's maybe it makes a difference for a urologist if they have to tack your bladder up to You know what? I don't know. I literally don't even know. Um, but I did have a student tell me that she had two uteruses, two cervixes, and two ureters. That was actually a little note that my coworker wrote me one day years ago. I don't know if you could see this. We're writing stickies back and forth about the fantastic things people say. And she's like, oh, yeah, well, my patient said she had two of this, and two of that. I win. That's what she wrote. God, I miss her. She was so freaking fun. Two hysterectomies. I guess one was with they took the uterus, left the cervix, and came back for the cervix. Made a second trip. They round tripped it back to the cervix. I don't know. All right. I think most of these I told you. Now, some of these, and you think that you won't believe some of the things that people send you, but this they brought in. Now, okay, can you see this list? Even if you can't read it, this is a list of their allergies. This is what they think they are allergic to. And I can't even start. If you think you're allergic to iron, you have to have iron to survive. Like, you literally have to have iron. You can't be allergic to. You can be allergic to some sort of chemical added preservative or something that's in the iron you've been getting, but you can't be allergic to iron itself. Now, and pork, you can be allergic to. It's not nothing we're going to give you, so I don't know why they put that on there. Red dye, also poison, so everybody's allergic to red dye. It is, in fact, poison. Don't get me started on the dyes. I just got a list of what each individual dye does. I watched this woman talk about it, and it's really amazing that we're all still alive if you think about it. The amount of poison we ingest regularly. You know, Skittles and Mountain Dew are illegal in a lot of other countries, and here we just pass it out. It really does blow my mind. Oh, trees. She's allergic to trees. See at the bottom there, trees. I'm not kidding. It says trees. She's allergic to trees. And yellow gold. I don't even, prednisone. Well, listen, if you start to have an allergy, guess what we're going to give you? We're going to give you a corticosteroid. But all right, polysporin, all the polys, all the penicillins. And I really like when they say penicillin, then they proceed to list 10 different types of penicillin. We're not going to give you any. If you tell us penicillin, oh, she's allergic to mold. You mean the allergen mold? It's an allergen. 100% of people are allergic to mold. That's okay. Methotrexate, good. Thank God she's allergic to that. It's poison. Oh my God, it's poison. When I first read a little of that, it was years ago. We were with students, and I think one of the students maybe put it on a med list. So I was like, oh, let me look into that. Hadn't really been a lot of involvement with it. Didn't really know. Like, I knew it was for RA, and they used for a couple other things, but the more I looked into it, and this was probably like literally almost 15 years ago. Oh my gosh, methotrexate. I can't fathom how rough you have to have it to go on that. I want to say medication, that poison, that unbelievable scary poison. Liquid Calm. She's allergic to Liquid Calm. What do you suppose that is? Alcohol? You think that's alcohol? Liquid Calm? I don't know. Levaquin, latex, lactose. Probably not allergic to lactose, probably just intolerant, still not an allergy. All the H's. Oh, and look, and it's alphabetized. Grass, she's allergic to grass, so make sure you don't administer any grass to her. Wow, lots of cockroaches. Cockroaches, sorry, God, can you see that? She's allergic to cockroaches. I'm sorry, God. Come on! Me too. And I was born in South Florida. You know what the freaking palmetto bugs like? They're like this big and they fly. God, I'll never forget lifting up, thinking about it now, lifting up my saddle pads. You kind of, we used to hang them on our doors on our tack rooms. So you just put like a rope across and nail it in, hay string, let's be honest, it was hay string. And then you just kind of like flip your pads over there. So you have like, 5 pads hanging on one door. Lift up one of those pads. I mean, 5,000 palmetto bugs, 5,000 cockroaches that can fly in your hair. I mean, you lift it up, you put it right back down. Then you're like, I need that saddle pad. What do I do? You go beg some fearless individual to get it down for you. And then there's nothing you can, it's like you can spray anything on that just to make them not come back, because I don't want that stuff going into my horse. So, oh my God, cockroaches, that Blue dye, well, good. Bee sting, so she probably swells. Barium, iodine, antidepressants. That's just the whole, she's allergic to every single antidepressant, which I'm surprised that she's not on. You know what? Other than the list of allergies, I'd like to see her list of meds. Now, keep in mind, she had to have tried all of these at some point to know she's allergic to them, minus grass, trees, and yellow gold. I'm not sure how that happened there. There's some EKG strips we'll get into some other time. I think I showed you this before. In the middle, the patient was on necrotic therapy. I'm sure that was just a typo of the transcriber, necrotic therapy. You know, you try to help somebody by killing the tissue, which, you know, there probably is some truth to that in some certain effects. And then, oh gosh, here's another one. Okay, at least this comes with the beginning list of medications. Here's another list of allergies. It's from here to from the top of the page all the way to here. It's another list of allergies. All right. That is a lot of medications to try to find out you're allergic to them. I don't even understand how that happens. And you know it's real when they're allergic to Dilaudid. That had to be like a real allergy, I'm assuming. And they say stuff like, well, I stopped breathing. Okay, well, you're probably overdosed on Dilaudid. That's not an allergy unless your throat swelled and stopped you from breathing, but okay. And then the medications they're actually on is are very rare ones because they're allergic to all the normal ones. Wow, that is much. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to stop here because I got stuff to do. But for those of you that took my IV therapy class, I do have all 8 pages of the one I handed out and y'all got to look. That was super interesting. And then I'll look to see if I've got any more stuff that y'all have written over the years. Here's a couple little things. Oh, everyone thinks they had a blood clog. I know you've heard that before. Integral hernia. Left rectum. Their left rectum is what we're working on there. And blood pills. People who take the blood pills. I will tell you this, though, and then I'm out of here. I was just listening to, and I think I mentioned this before, I was listening to one of my favorite guys, the one that told that whole ridiculous anesthesia story, but I still love him. He's still very good. He was just saying how, I don't know why people do these things with the hiking and the going through the desert and trying to, anyway, this guy was running this marathon through the desert. I don't even know where it is, Egypt. Well, you know what? I do know where it is because he ended up getting off course and he walked 100 miles to Algeria. He was like gone for 7 months. They thought he was dead. No, he was just walking to Algeria, you know, through the desert. Anyway, as he was out there, when he realized, like, I'm really lost on my little quest here. And after that, he ran another 8 or 9 marathons in the desert. He was like, I almost died, so I should do that again. So at one point he was like, okay, this is it. He found, they said he found some Hindu, God, I could be wrong. What'd he say? Hindu, mausoleum or something. He thought, okay, this, at least they'll find me and my family will have closure instead of dying out in the desert and, you know, being eaten by whatever and, you know, his bones separating. So he's like, you know, I'll die here. So he cut his wrists and thought he'll just bleed to death. And he kind of made peace with it. And he was really like okay with it from, you know, what he said, because he did survive. At any rate, he couldn't bleed to death because he was too dehydrated. You know what that means? That means his blood was too thick to even get out of his vessels or out of the cut that he made. Maybe the cut wasn't big enough to where his blood was too thick and it couldn't ooze out. Because he was dehydrated. Not because he wasn't taking blood thinners, you know, which he wasn't. Because he ran out of water, which is a blood thinner. Just saying. I'm just saying. That's my point entirely. Okay, that's it. I got to get out of here. We already went way over according to, you know, my time limit, friend. So face your fears, forget your failures, follow your faith, and I may only have a little bit longer here, and then I'm gonna have to go back to some actual teaching stuff, and then I'll call it quits because apparently I pissed somebody off who left a little comment that said I wasn't very kind. Yeah, I'm not really trying to be, but for those of you that work in the field, you know what we're going for, and this is who it's for. This isn't for entertainment. Someone cruising through videos. If you want to learn, watch my other stuff. If you want to understand what the rest of us are going through, then you know, you can watch this one. Okay, hugs and kisses. I'll see you next time. Yeah, and that's not going to work. That's it. I quit.